Hello there, so this is the third of the individual car review videos, and this time I'm going to look at a muscle car. This one right here, the Sabre Turbo. Now, for one main reason, this is going to be a slightly different sort of review to the others I've done so far. So I've looked at two cars so far. This one, I'm fairly sure, and I'm just going to check because I haven't got a photographic memory of this website, but I'm fairly sure this is not available to buy. So this is a car that has to be found. And in some ways I suppose that's a good thing because it's not going to cost you anything. So you're saving a bit of money there. But it's one that you have to find. They're not incredibly difficult to find. When you see one, it's one of those cars, I think it's to do with like the memory of the game. You see one and they all show up at once. So it's not the worst car to find, and if anyone did want help finding one, I know there's the spawn points for it, or some of the spawn points, and if you're on a PlayStation 4, then I can actually just go and find one for you if you'd like. And if you want that, then just leave me a comment and I'll send you my PSN ID. In terms of what this car's based on in reality, I'm not entirely sure, to be quite honest. I think it's a combination of two different cars. I think it's partly based on the Oldsmobile Cutlass, which is a muscle car, and then another muscle car called the Chevrolet Chevelle SS at the back. It's not the only car that has that sort of characteristic of the Chevelle SS, but certainly one of them. In terms of how I've chosen to do my car here, this is a combination that took me a while to find, and you'll notice that the theme here is very much like a red theme running all the way throughout the car. I've decided to go a bit OTT with the big sort of triple intake scoop that I've got on the hood, but I've been complimented many a time on this car, mainly because of the colour I've got on it, but I'll explain more about that in a minute. Right, so first of all, usefulness in races. This isn't the worst muscle car for race. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's certainly not the worst. The thing about this, it's not underpowered, but compared to things like the Dominator and the Ruiner, on a straight it does seem to lack a bit of power. Handling wise, it used to be a very unstable car, this. However, now it's quite stable. Still drifts around, but I like the turning circle of it. As you can see there, it turns quite a lot. I can sort of do loops around here fairly easily, and this is a muscle car, you know, this is quite a shock. It's got good acceleration, its traction's reasonable considering it's a muscle car. The top speed's okay, but like I say, it's not bad. It's just when you compare it to the very top end muscle cars, you know, when we talk about the Dominator and the Ruiner and the Blade, they've got so much power on a straight. I'm afraid in a race with a lot of straights, this just isn't going to compete. If you've got some corners though, and you like the handling of this car, and you can make use of it, because I do really like this car in terms of how it handles, this one probably will get you quite far. So yeah, pretty good in races. It just depends what track it is, I suppose, but I do use it sometimes. For free mode, this one, it's a nice car to drive around in. It's quite a strong car. The damage retention is pretty good. It keeps driving despite having a few knock-ups. It's a good car for bringing to car meetups. I do quite regularly. If I do enter like a car meet, then I will bring this along at some point. And it's a good one for getting you around in free mode. It's because it's not too unstable. It can get you from A to B in a fairly reliable sort of fashion. So overall ratings for those factors. Racers, I'd give it an 8 actually. It's not the best, but I do think the handling is quite underrated. I don't really know why people aren't aware of the stability of this one, because it's not as slidey as some of the other muscle cars, and I think you know, if you like the handling of it, it can do quite well in a race. But it does depend what race it is. If it's a race with a lot of straights and you've got opponents in a Dominator, then I wouldn't fancy your chances. Let's just say that. If they can drive that car well enough and they don't spin out, then they're just going to have so much power on the straight that you're at quite a major disadvantage there. Free mode, I'd probably give it another 8. With it being a muscle car, it's not as fast as your super and sports cars. It's only got 2 seats, so obviously you're limited in terms of your carrying capacity there, but it is a cool car to drive around in. It sounds nice, it looks nice, and it's good for showing off. What I'm going to do now, and this is probably going to be the most interesting part of this particular video, is I'm going to take this to the mod shop. This car actually does have quite an extensive choice in terms of what you can do to it, which is nice. I think, although a lot of the options are just slightly different versions of other options, this is one of those cars where you really can make it your own. You know, when you find these as stock, they look reasonable anyway, but when you modify it and you do what you want with it, it just takes it to the next sort of level. I mean, I absolutely love how this car looks. And this car is a returning car from older Grand Theft Auto games, you know. The Sabre Turbo has always been one of my favourites. In games like Vice City, it was one of the fastest cars on there. Right, so bumpers. This is how you get it as stock. Looks completely different, really, quite basic. You can go for a small sort of chin spoiler. You can go for a more extended spoiler, which is a bit lower down. You can go for that chin spoiler but with a painted section above it, or you can go for the painted section and the bigger chin spoiler, which is what I've gone for. So again, it's one of those things where it's like different combinations, not completely different options. But if you think, oh, I like that part from this option, but I like this other bit from the other option, I wish I could have both, well, that's why they've done it this way, I guess. Yeah, and then the rear bumper, I've left this as stock because I think it matches in better with the colours I've chosen, but I'll explain more about that in a minute. You can make that painted if you wanted to, which I think it kind of spoils how it matches up with those stripes, but only because of the colour I've chosen. But like I say, I'll explain that. Exhausts. These are your stock exhausts, very thin, quite poor sort of exhaust, really. You can go for bigger chrome tip exhausts, which don't come out at as much of an angle. Big bore exhausts, which are similar to those, really, but just sort of a bit longer. And then these side exit, and I looked at the side exit, you know, these twin sort of pipes coming off of one side, and I thought it's a fairly easy decision, you know, if I'm doing my car like this, so that's what I went for. The grille, this is how you get it as stock, and that makes it look quite different too. Stock grille, just like a chrome grille, and you can de-chrome it, which makes it, I know you can't really see with the colour I've chosen, but what that actually does, the de-chroming, is make that grille black. And if you paint it, I don't know whether you can see that, but you notice it's changed that, it's changed the grille to the same colour as the rest of my body. So I decided to do that. I didn't see much point in having it black, I thought I'd match it in. I know it doesn't show up very well, so apologies for that, but I assure you that this is black. The hood, now this is your stock hood, just normal flat sort of hood. You can go for a cowl induction, which is this sort of weird pointy sort of vents that you've got with the sort of the vent sections in the back of it. It looks alright. The ram air hood, I quite like this one. You've got these two vents sort of at the front. I don't know whether you can see that, but that's quite a nice one. I used to have that. Or you can go for a flat carbon hood, which if you matched it with different colours on this car, that would actually look quite good, but for me it just wouldn't match in with this. I've gone for the triple intake bug catcher purely because of the red, and again I'll explain more about that. Or you can go for this other bug catcher. Those two are sort of recurring options on quite a number of cars, but I decided to go for it this time. I'm not usually much of a fan, but I broke the trend and I thought, yeah, why not? I've not got it on any of my other cars, so I'll push the boat out a bit and I'll go a bit overboard. So that's that. Right, another one is you can have a roll cage option. I've gone for the roll cage chassis upgrade. Now this stunt cage, technically this is supposed to be the better option, but I didn't go for it for a couple of reasons. I don't know if you can quite see it. If you look at where the passenger seat is, if I go on stunt cage, you'll notice the sort of passenger seat's taken out. And for weight reduction, what actually happens is there's like a, I don't know whether you can see it, but there's like a wooden sort of panel. Like the passenger just sits on this horrible wooden panel type thing. It's like this horrible seat. So I thought it was a bit crap, really. I mean, I never saw that when I first put it on. I used to have this on my car, but then I decided I didn't like the look of it. So I got rid of that. The other reason I don't like this stunt cage is that that's the only colour it can be. It doesn't change with your secondary colour. That stunt cage will always stay that horrible sort of orangey yellow thing, and if your car doesn't match up with that colour, then it's not going to look very good. And obviously with this roll cage chassis upgrade, I also like the fact you've still got your passenger seat, which is always a bonus, rather than sitting on this crappy sort of panel thing. And you've got like a nitrous bottle in the middle as well, as you can see, that blue bottle. So one of those weird situations where the most expensive is not the best. Spoilers, there's only one spoiler option, but it looks nice. That's how it comes as stock, and you can put like a nice little low-level spoiler on it, which, yeah, it's a nice touch. And I think, oh no, so there is one more thing, a wheelie bar. There's a few muscle cars you can do this to. I personally absolutely hate them. It pisses me off. It's an OCD thing. If you've got this wheelie bar sticking out of the back, I just can't stand it. So yeah, that's everything there. In terms of how I've done this car, I've done like a matte black. It's a glitch. I've done a video on this. It's the pearlescent paint glitch, which is in the discussion playlist. But I've done matte black with a red pearlescent over it, and then what I've done, obviously I put the triple intake bug catcher on it, which has these red circles in it which match up again. And then I also deliberately decided, I went for a chrome secondary colour, so all my stripes are chrome because I thought they were nice and shiny, and it was a nice contrast from the matte black and red. I also decided not to de-chrome the back, because I thought with the chrome stripes, it sort of cuts off the chrome stripes, doesn't it? I mean, I like that. I think it matches in better, and it's a nice contrast on the front as well. So it's a bit weird how I've done it, but for these colours I've picked, I think it looks good. Something else I'd like to point out as well, in case you're wondering why they're like that, is these wheels. These wheels, I think they're called Blade. It's on the high-end section, and you'll want to choose just stock. If you choose chrome like this, you won't be able to do what I've done. But if you change the colour of these wheels, obviously most other wheels, if you change the colour, it changes the whole thing like this. If you change the colour of these wheels, you still have like a mostly chrome sort of alloy effect, but with like the other bar, the other separate part of each spoke is painted, and I think that works really well. You know, having a bit of chrome and a bit of red on each wheel, I think it looks pretty cool. That when I found these, I thought, excellent. You know, it's just a finishing touch to a car that already looks fantastic. So a lot of people have looked at this car and thought, overall, you know, and people have told me, oh, I used to have a Sabre turbo, but I like yours. How have you done that? I said, well, the paint glitch is the main bit that does it, because that effect with the black and red is just super cool, you know, but the rest of it is just stuff that I found and experimented with. It took me ages to get it to look, well, to find this combination, but I'm really pleased with it now. So my overall verdict on this, it's a returning car from all the GTAs. I've always been a fan of this car. It's just a really nice overall car. It sounds good, it looks good, and it drives well. It's not the fastest, but it's fast enough to have fun with. It's good at sort of donuts like this. Yeah, I just really like this car. It won't cost you anything because you can't buy it anyway. Is it worth stealing and modifying up? Well, I would say so, yeah. I mean, if you like your muscle cars, or if you just like cars that you can do a lot of customization with and make it your own, there aren't really that many cars that are better for doing that. There's other cars like the Sultan, which you can do that with, but this is one of those sort of 4 or 5 rare cars on this game where you can just take it to a whole new level from what it is as stock. If you, like I say, if you do want help finding one of these, I can help you. Just leave a comment if you want. The interior, like with a lot of other muscle cars, is fairly basic, black and sort of plasticky, and you know, leather seats. But yeah, it's all right. But you know, it's the exterior you want to be looking at on this one. So that's it for this one. I will see you in the next review.